From Pure Sports, baby. We're back with a little UFC 311 talk. Finally back talking some MMA with my guy, two-man booth here. We got Dan back in the house, ready to talk some MMA. Dan, a little layoff for us, but we're back. Awesome pay-per-view. Unfortunate news, obviously, with Arman Tsarukyan pulling out day before the fight. What can you do about that? But we still have an awesome card. Obviously not as great of a main event, but still as a full card, this thing's loaded.
Yeah, still a stacked card. Super excited. It's been a dark, cold MMA-less month, or at least UFC-less month. So super happy to be back with everybody, ready to talk some fights.
Yep, ready to talk some fights, get into it. I will say last week, even though the card wasn't like, it didn't feel like it's stacked, I thought the fights were pretty damn good last week for like a fight night card. The female main event I thought was pretty solid too. Mackenzie Dern showed out. That was pretty cool. Got the finish. And some of the other fights were pretty good. I think it showed out as a little bit of a better card than what people thought, Dan, originally.
Yeah, well, I think it was close. I think the record I actually don't know what the record for finishes on a card is, and they didn't hit it last week. I think they tied it, the card that we went to in AC, the Furo Blanchfield card. But I think this was like one away from the most finishes on a fight night card, or any card for that matter.
So that probably helped out in it being more entertaining of a
it was a lot of fun
when you're obviously getting finishes left and right. So yeah, no, it was a good card, and I think we're gonna go back to back here. Obviously, like we talked about, they couldn't fill Dariush either. So Dariush is out as well, right? Because they didn't get an opponent for him. Obviously, his opponent, Moicano, is going to fight Islam Makhachev for the championship, cut that extra pound, and he's going to be good to go. So that's kind of the news. No Arman Tsarukyan in the main event. It's going to be Renato Moicano, and Beneil Dariush is out, obviously, because he lost his dance partner with no one, I guess, to step up for him. So that's weird, though. I'm surprised I bet you they could have found someone to fight Dariush.
Well, Charles is in LA. My best friend Charles. I saw him. He was sending pictures of him wearing a hoodie in the sauna.
He would have whooped on Dariush. He probably was just like,
Oh no, I think I misunderstood you. I think Oliveira was angling to try to get
the championship fight.
Yeah.
The championship
that, but
yeah. What are you gonna do?
This is good too. I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to it. It's yeah, I think it's gonna be a walkover for Makhachev, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna need that much time to go through it, but we'll go through it, and who knows, maybe we'll find a nice bet we like when we get there. But let's start at the top with Tagir Ulunbeckov here, 8,900 on DraftKings versus Clayton Carpenter prospect, 7,300. Carpenter coming in 8-0, 2-0 in the UFC, looking really good. And this is an interesting matchup, Dan. Clash of styles here. Both guys like to get the ground game going, the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu here. And I think that the reason why Ulunbeckov right now sitting a pretty solid favorite is because he might just have be a tier above Clayton Carpenter in a lot of those areas. Right now sitting a minus 325 favorite here. Do you see that as something that's a little high considering Clayton Carpenter has looked really good? Or do you think Tagir is just clearly a step above maybe Carpenter right now?
It feels a little wide for flyweight, especially, right? Like we know at these lower weight classes, the fights are usually more competitive. So I think Carpenter is definitely a live dog. I'm not really as excited about this fight for DFS overall, just because it's not really looking like it's going to finish inside the distance. It's like 32% implied to finish inside the distance. Ulunbeckov, who I have picked, I have him by decision. He's 8,900, which that top end range, which we'll get to, it's kind of a unique card because half the fighters, or it seems like, nearly like a good portion of the fighters are 9K and above, and we're missing a lot of mid range. So I don't know. The top end of this card is extremely strong, and Ulunbeckov, I don't know. He just doesn't really have the same like finishing upside as a lot of these options up here. Carpenter, he's sort of just okay everywhere, you know. He doesn't really stand out anywhere, and it's kind of my problem with him. I think Ulunbeckov has at least showed a good amount of skill up at the UFC level, and Carpenter is just still so inexperienced and so green. So I have a really hard time picking him. But again, at these lower weight classes, I think it's also notable that Ulunbeckov, you know, he's been around for a while. He's pulled out of a lot of fights, which kind of leads me to believe his health, you know, especially at this age, 33 for a flyweight isn't exactly young. I guess Carpenter is 28. So there's a bit of an age gap there. We'll pull out the age model. But yeah, I think Ulunbeckov, there's a bit more wear on the tires there, which is a bit concerning. I just think like skill for skill, Ulunbeckov probably has him covered everywhere. So I don't mind taking a shot. As far as ownership goes, the fight, they're each around like 20%. So I haven't started building yet, but I suspect I'm going to be coming in a bit below that.
Yeah, I will say from an upside standpoint, maybe not finishing upside, but these guys both do have like wrestling upside, right? Takedown upside, control time. Obviously, Ulunbeckov probably a little bit better, but you know, Carpenter's pretty good if he gets you down. The problem is, I just don't know if he's going to be the one initiating those or if it's going to be Tagir. The one thing I also noticed about Carpenter, which kind of worries me a little bit, is even in the fight last time out against Hocha, where he won, he found the submission, he was definitely the better fighter, but in the stand-up, he was extremely hittable. I mean, like in the first round, there were times where Hocha was just cleanly catching him, but he's, like you said, he's kind of younger, he's got a good chin, he kind of fights a little, you know, he's a little over aggressive at times. I think he's got to work on his defense, especially when it comes to striking, and not just taking so many clean hits to the face and like eating them, because eventually you just can't. And Tagir, even though he kind of seems like a guy that you wouldn't worry about it with, I think he's got like kind of sneaky power that guys don't like. I'm not saying he's like super powerful, but you'll like walk into something like Cody Durden did, where it was just like a simple straight right, where he just caught him right on the chin. He just dropped Cody Durden. Wasn't out. Cody Durden was still there. He was still like, and then like from there was the scramble and the, you know, like the wrestling exchange, the submission attempt and stuff like that. But my point is, like, I could see that happening again, where Carpenter is just a little overexcited. He's younger. He comes in a little aggressive, and he kind of gets caught, and maybe it's like a, you know, drop and then a submission or something like that to kind of finish. But to your point, if this goes to decision, what's the scoring upside for these two? It's probably not as good.
Not high enough.
So yeah, it's probably not as high enough. 7,300 for Carpenter, you know, 8,900. The only way I think I'd play some Ulunbeckov if I'm like MMEing, because I do think he does have upside in like the way if he could found a late finish, you know what I mean? If he kind of got some wrestling going for a little bit and then found a late finish, I could see him having some upside. So I wouldn't take him out of the pool. I'll probably be lower on Carpenter. There's some other dogs I like a little bit more than Carpenter too, that are still like kind of big dogs. And that's the one thing with this card is we've got a lot of these fights that I look at and I'm like, the line's a little wide. Even the fights where I like the favorites, I'm like, it still feels like kind of silly that the line is like minus 350 or whatever it is. So I just like some other dogs as we get there. But Carpenter, Ulunbeckov, both guys seem like lower owned DFS options if you want to go there. I think I'm more on the favorite. It sounds like you're more on the favorite if you had to pick a side, but it doesn't seem like you're high on either guy, right, Dan?
Yeah, not high on either guy for DFS. Like I'm forced to pick, so I pick Ulunbeckov. But really, I can see either guy. Again, like at this weight class, it's hyper competitive, regardless of what the odds say. So, you know, I can see a Carpenter win, but I don't necessarily see him getting a finish, which is a problem because like we just touched on, like there's a lot of high upside dogs on this card.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of good dogs are looking like good dogs on this card here. Let's get to the next fight. Ricky Tercios, a plus 215 underdog versus Bernardo Sopai. Sopai coming in a minus 265 favorite. And Dan, I'll just throw this one out here because I was big on Sopai coming in to his last fight against Vinicius Oliveira. And he looked good for a little bit. He was aggressive. He kind of got tired. And then Oliveira kind of went to work. His striking was a little bit better in the end. Got that vicious knockout in the third round, which was sick. And you do worry about a guy coming off a brutal knockout like that. I mean, Sopai's still young. I think his talent is there. He's definitely really good. And I think the UFC is trying to do him a favor with this matchup because Ricky Tercios is not like a super dangerous guy. He's a durable guy. He's a guy that can last and give you issues, but he's not a guy that's going to give you like scares, like power scares, like Vinicius Oliveira carrying that power through 3 rounds. Like he's not that type of guy, Tercios. So I think the UFC kind of knew what they were doing with this fight. Sopai also got a little tired. Like that kind of comes into play a little bit. And even though I think Sopai's the more dangerous fighter, which I think he clearly is, I don't even think that's a question. I think Ricky Tercios could find a way to win a 3-round decision. I see like a split decision coming in this fight where Sopai wins the first round. The second round is super close. Like it's back and forth and it's super close. And then Ricky wins the third round. It just all comes down to how the judges see that second round going. I don't see a finish here. I think this fight goes to the cards. And I think Ricky, in an event that he wins a 3-round decision at 6,900, he could pay off his tag at 6,900 very easily in that situation. You know, he's got some skills. If it gets to the ground, he knows how to like reverse a little bit. He can do his own takedowns. I don't know if he will here, but he can. You know, he's just a solid guy. I don't love his stand up. I don't think he's got a ton of power, but I think he's, you know, got the cardio and the path where he can kind of outlast Sopai. So I'm kind of more on the dog. I like the plus 3.5-2 line at plus 100 on DraftKings, where Ricky's only got to win a round. I think that's very, very doable. And the plus 215 money line, I'm going to sprinkle some on too. But yeah, I'm on some Ricky here. I'm going to sprinkle some Ricky in my MME builds. What about you?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to sprinkle some Ricky in. I actually picked him to win straight up by decision, but
yeah, get in there.
I hate it. I fucking hate it, man.
I mean, I don't like it either, but
yeah, he's not good. And like, I think technically Sopaj is probably better than him in most areas, but you know, you mentioned the knockout, like that knockout that he that knockout that he took is like, that's like life-changing shit, you know? Like that was fucking that I mean, it was a beautiful knockout. It's like all the things you want, right? It's like flashy, it's violent, it's like a little bit scary. It's like the way he just fucking crumpled to the ground was just like I watched that knockout so many goddamn times, dude. But yeah, I do think Sopaj is actually probably the more skilled fighter. He's definitely, you know, like we just talked about with Carpenter, he's inexperienced. Tercio certainly has more experience than him in the UFC, especially. But you know, there are a lot of good dogs on this card that are going to be coming with ownership, and Sopaj is going to be 13% owned as a pretty big favorite. And I think he actually does have the capability to finish Tercios here. So I'm not going to go overboard on Tercios. I'm certainly going to have him because I picked him to win as much as I hate it. And at 6,900, you don't really need to do all that much in a win, though I imagine a win for him probably just involves a ton of wrestling and grappling exchanges, tons of like striking volume. It's going to be an active fight if he wins because his main path to victory is sort of just outpacing Sopaj. I saw a lot of people saying that Sopaj, last time he was out was short notice, so they're kind of like discounting like his problem that he had gassing against, because he was winning that fight before he got knocked out. It's just the tide turned at a certain point because he just totally lost. He was training for a fight, before he got called in on the short notice.
Well, his pace, he just couldn't hold for the 3 rounds. He just couldn't hold it, and you could tell like he was starting to get tired towards that second. And
right, so I mean, to me, his cardio is pretty questionable. I know people want to excuse it because it was short notice, but again, like he was already training for a fight when he got the call to fill in. So maybe his cardio just isn't that good. And if that's the case, then I think Turcios has a real shot. But as far as
I think he also had a tough draw first time out. I mean, Vinicius Oliveira is a good fighter. That's a dangerous fighter. It's not a slouch. It's not like he got dropped by some he fought a dude that he's got crazy power, throws from his hips. Like you don't even see it coming sometimes. The guy's a little wild.
Oliveira went out and, took out beat Ricky Simone his next fight, which
that just shows you how good he is. Yeah, exactly.
He's definitely on the decline, but he was, top 15 guy for how long? Like a while.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
It's a good win. Bottom line, I think Turcios is extremely live here, but I'm definitely going to want to play some Sopaj because he's going to be 13% on a slate where I want to shove some pretty high-owned pieces. So I kind of like him as a way to get different.
Each is the only one that does content. I think there's others that do content. I know at Run Pure Sports we got a big MMA crew. So if you sign up and join Run Pure Sports, you're going to get not just me and Dan's cores and content and stuff like that, but Big T does MMA, JBC, Schlong does the cash stuff, Third and Schlong. Christine's got her bets in her cores and stuff like that. So we got a bunch of people that do MMA over at the site. But yeah, me and Dan are normally the ones stroke into the MMA stuff live on air every week. But we do have a crew, so it's not just us. But appreciate you, Josh. What's up, Wiley? We got Matthew in the house. What's going on, Perez? My guy, the Spaniard. I love that. Man, thought that was you in the thumbnail preview. Arman Tsarukyan. I'm still mad about that. I don't want to talk about it because I'm so annoyed. I was telling Dan before the show, I was like, this was the one shot we had at seeing even just Islam struggle for like a round or so, like a full round of just struggle. Like this would have been the one shot. I know no one thought that. Everyone would have been on Islam, but like, it's annoying. We'll get it. We'll get it soon. I think they'll.
It's a lot of pissed off Armenians in California right now, dude.
And people were saying, someone in our chat was like, "There's a lot of like mad Armenians," and I'm like, dude, the Armenian population in California is like the second biggest. It's huge. Like a massive amount of Armenians out in California. So
second biggest to Armenia.
No, I think so. Yeah, literally. So I always knew that. My dad told me that a long time ago. It's always been that way. It's been that way for a while.
That would have been like a home game for Armin too, huh?
Honestly, Dan, in my head, I'm like, they put it in Cali because of Armin.
I mean,
seriously. No, I'm serious. Because think about it. Like Armin doesn't get. Think about it. If he's headlining a card, Armin's not one of those guys that just draws the regulars, the regulars in. You know what I mean? That I'm saying like non-Armenians. So why wouldn't you put him in the place where there's the second largest population of his like countrymen? And why wouldn't you do that? I have to think that's one of the reasons why it was there.
Makes perfect sense.
It literally makes perfect sense. So especially, and then you got Islam on the other side, and not that Islam's not amazing, but he's not like Connor. He's not like a fucking fan draw. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a reason why they're stacking this card. If Islam was a fan draw, they wouldn't stack the card like this. You know what I'm saying? If Islam was a Connor, they wouldn't need to. that's just the truth. So yeah. Who's this? You know who this guy is?
No.
No.
Never heard
Yeah,
of.
I don't know who he is either. He might give bets over at the Rumpier Sports site, maybe a core play. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not. All right, let's go to the next fight on the card here. We got Rinya Nakamura minus 625 on this card versus Muin Gafarov plus 455 underdog on DraftKings Sportsbook here. Dan, Rinya Nakamura, great all-around fighter. He's got some power, wrestling. You know, he's got kind of the full package. The only thing we haven't really seen as much of is like that finishing upside from him. He got it his first time out in the UFC, and then 2 straight decisions where he was 9,600 both times and scored 85 and 91. If he gets and one of the problems with that is he's got really good control, right, Dan? So once he gets you kind of down, you don't go anywhere a lot of the time. So it's not like a Morab thing where he's got to like take you down 5,000 times, right? And I think that's the problem with his DraftKings scoring when you start, you know, racking up more and more of those takedowns. Even if you go to a decision, you have a good chance of hitting that optimal in a decision win if you're getting like 8 takedowns. You know what I mean? But when you're only getting 3 or 4 and you're controlling a guy for 9 to 13 minutes, I mean, 13 minutes of control time last fight. That's a lot of control time. That means they stayed on the ground for a very long time during that fight, but it doesn't result in the big scores. But if he can get finishes with some of these takedowns and control time, he could get a big score. So that's the question here. He's back at 9,600. He's a massive favorite. We've seen Gafarov. Gafarov's solid. He's not like a bum. You know, he's a solid fighter. But I definitely think Nakamura is going to be, you know, much better just about everywhere.
Yeah, I think like Gafarov's main problem is, you know, he pushes such a heavy pace. He ultimately just gasses, and so to your point, we might finally get a UFC level finish from Nakamura just because Gafarov, you know, he's pretty competent in the striking, but he's wild. You know, he throws a ton, he doesn't land a ton, he throws a lot of power, and he leaves himself open to be hit and dropped. You know, Nakamura, obviously, he was going to wrestle in the Olympics. Like, striking isn't his main, it's not like his main thing. He's mainly a wrestler. And to your point, he hasn't really aggressively gone after finishes. He's kind of happy to just sort of control you, and that doesn't really score well at all. Like, he scored, you know, hit 13 minutes of control time and scored 91 in a win, which is not what you're looking for at all, especially not at 9,600, which he is this week. Right below, you know, 300 less than Peyton Talbot, which we'll get to him. But of the top range where I'm looking to get different, since they're, you know, the dogs that I like are going to end up being chalk, getting different at the top, he would be a candidate because he's only about 17% owned. But you got Talbot right there as well, who's only going to be a little bit more owned. And I like him so much more. It's going to be really hard for me to get to Nakamura just because the finishing upside is so questionable.
Yeah. I still think, though, with how many live underdogs there are in the price tags, you might just be able to spend up for these guys, you know, and then it's just like you might be able to get 2 or even lineups where you can get like close to 3 spend ups. You know, I've seen some lineups that I made, and I think they were easier before Arman got ruled out, because to be honest with you, before Arman got ruled out, I was just looking at builds yesterday, and like if you had Morab and Arman in there, like you could easily get 3 9K guys, and then you're just taking one other underdog. You know what I mean? It's like those aren't terrible lineups. You know what I mean? Like those wouldn't have been. They might have been somewhat popular, but they definitely looked interesting. But what you're saying is kind of the case. Like, how do you stack him up with Talbot? You got let's see, Jailton Almeida up there. You've got MAKHACHEV.
I mean, on the slate last week, we had two fighters priced above 9,500. Both hit the optimal. Klein and I forget who else now, but
I could see it. I honestly could see it.
Yeah, absolutely. On this slate, especially. So it can happen, but to me, I'm not sure you can get to 3. And I'm sitting here, I'm looking at this, and
not without Arman.
What's that?
Not without Arman.
Not without Arman, you can't get to 3. Right. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, because I could have played the 2 main events dogs. You know what I mean? Like now we don't have. I don't think I can do that now.
I think I'm debating this. I think I want to play 100% Islam in this spot. So, I'm pretty much. I'm already conceding that I'm going to have a 9,400 fighter to go along with 95, 96, 9,900. You can't fit 3.
All right. So then how do you stack up Talbot, Jailton, and Rinya? Because that's the DFS question. Because Islam's obviously one. Because I agree with you.
Islam and then one of 9,500.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying, how do you rank those 3? Because we both agree Islam is the one. Like, we all want Islam. Everyone's gonna want Islam though. So like, who are you ranking out of those 3? 1, 2, 3. Who's number 1 for you?
Above him, it's Talbot, then Almeida, then Nakamura. Nakamura's last.
So that makes sense here. Yeah. If you're like Dan, that kind of makes sense because the finishing upside is just, it seems like it's not there with someone like him.
Yeah, his finishing odds compared to his range are just it's really tough for me to get there. Sopaj has about the same finishing odds for 300 less. That's way more workable.
God, he's just like so much better. Almost like he's like too good, but he's like stays kind of like
because he doesn't have to do anything.
He's not as aggressive either. It feels like when he goes out there, like he's not like hunting the fin. I feel like he doesn't hunt the finish as much because when you do that, you lose position sometimes. That's the the position, submission over position or whatever. Like guys, want to stay somewhat safe. Some guys want to go quickly into the mount or, whatever. And they can lose position when they do stuff like that. When you're transitioning is when you can lose those positions. So like guys like him are very careful when they do stuff like that. They're not just, jumping for it. So that's just one of the things with him, but I can't play Gafarov. I think he's one of the dogs that I probably won't have any of. I don't know. Are you going to have any Gafarov?
Yeah, I'll play some Gafarov. He's got power in his hands and, he's a wild man. I love that. I love the kind of, I love that, like, I'm like wild, like killer be killed mentality, especially from a guy who's 6,600. I mean, Nakamura probably takes him down and just sort of like wet blankets him and controls him for 15 minutes, but I think he's worth a shot. I'm not going to go crazy on it. Let's see. He's going to be, I got like 12%, probably come in around there, maybe a little higher.
Yeah, I'm going to say, well, I think Rinya could finish him, but I think it would be on the ground because Gafarov does have power. So, like, I think if anything, it would go. This fight could go to the ground here. I know he doesn't have a ton of sub finishes, but I think that's just more due to his style.
Gafarov's live early, mainly puncher's chance type.
That's why I think he's gonna tire him out by keeping him on the ground. It's gonna frustrate Gafarov. Like, the first round. You know what I mean? He's just going to wet blanket him round 1, and then it's probably 2 or 3.
It's a great matchup for Nakamura to get his first UFC finish.
It is. Yeah. All right. Next fight on the card, we've got Karol Hosa. Karol Hosa sitting a -250 favorite to Elana Perez, Morab's favorite female MMA fighter. Morab obviously on the card later, but Elana Perez. Dan, do you think that Perez at 7,600, ass shaking aside, can cover that DraftKings price? And is this line a little wide?
I think so. The line continues to move towards Hosa, and I pick Hosa. I've said it a bunch of times on this show. I don't think Elana Perez is any good, but she continues to just make me look like an idiot time after time after time. But we finally get her at dog money. So while I'm picking Hosa, I'm definitely going to be playing some Eileen Perez as a dog.
I know she's not good. Look who she's fought. And tell me seriously. Tell me like who is look at all these Pudilova, Evan Smith, Jocelyn Edwards. Okay, she's okay. I don't know. I think this is a step up.
The fucking Tapology photo is her just twerking and Dudikova.
Of course it is. Of course it is. I think this is a step up in competition though. Like even Carol Hosa's losses are to very good MMA fight. You know what I mean? Like I think this is a pretty solid step up, and I don't know. I think Hosa wins. She can volume it up too. Women's MMA, like
dude, Carol Hosa comes out here and puts up Max Holloway numbers. It's fucking crazy the volume she throws. It's absolutely
indecisions too. Indecisions. She can somehow cover that price tag. I don't think you need a finish from her. That's the crazy thing with her is like you don't necessarily need a finish at 8,600 to cover the price tag with her volume. I just worry about like if Eileen's trying to take her down for like a full round and stuff like that, and she's just defending takedowns for a while and not piecing up volume. But in that second and third round, she could put up some big scores if she can kind of stuff the takedowns early. So, which I think she can. I think she can kind of, stay away from that early and then start to piece her up later and, rack it up. So I like Carol Hosa. I think she's a good DFS play. Eileen Perez. If you think she gets the takedowns or you like her to win, she's probably not a terrible DFS play if you like her to win, right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like her to win, and I still think she's a good DFS play. I mean, I think Carol Hosa is obviously the better striker. I think she's the better wrestler, but women's MMA for one thing, super unpredictable. Kind of the same way we were talking about flyweights earlier. Like these fights are always closer than the line would have you think. And when Perez,
Carol Hosa is coming forward constantly.
When Perez wins, she smashes. Yes. She absolutely smashes,
because when she's winning, it's takedown, takedown. Yeah, control, takedown. I think it will be interesting if Carol Hosa puts her on the back foot and tries to just take her down.
I think if Hosa's smart, she'll go for the takedowns herself because Perez on her back is like she's kind of lost.
Yeah, she's not as comfortable. That's for sure.
Very physical and very strong and like is good in top position, but bottom position, she's kind of fucked. And just like she hasn't really been fighting anybody that's been able to put her on her back. And I think Hosa can. This line has been, moving, steaming wildly for Hosa as well. So
Tim's here to bring the good vibes. He's eating fruit roll-ups and fruit by the... I didn't even know they still made those, man. Those were...
Yeah, they do.
Back in the day, those were the shit as a kid. You eat those fruit roll-ups. I swear to God, too, you could just eat like 2 boxes of those things and just, feel... As a kid, and you just feel totally fine. Maybe sugar high, but like outside of that, you feel great. Now I'd probably like puke halfway through eating like 2 of them, so... I had a pack of Gushers last night before I went to bed.
That easily could have been me. I actually got a whole like box of sour straws delivered to my house today. They're like Arctic flavored.
Dude, those are my favorite candies. Those sour straws. Oh my God. I don't eat candy like obviously, but like when I was a kid, I used to eat candy.
What do you mean? Obviously, I still eat fucking candy.
I didn't say it because I was an adult. I said it because like. I owned a gym and I like worked out for a living, but for health reasons. So not because of that. Definitely not because I'm an adult. I know adults eat candy, bro. My brothers eat candy all the time.
Dude, I probably eat too much candy. I shouldn't be having boxes of the shit delivered to my house. That's for sure.
That's all right. Yeah, there's worse things you could have delivered to your house, bro. That's fine. You can have candy.
Yeah, I've done them too.
Yeah, exactly. Don't even worry about that shit. Let Amazon deliver a box of sour straws. Those things are bomb.
Staying out of trouble. Eating my sour straws.
Hey, whatever works, right? Whatever works. Eat the sour straws. My brother was like Sour Patch. Just always Sour Patch everywhere. Yeah.
Love sour candy, man.
Sour candy's definitely the best. All right, on to the next fight here. Oh, I love this fight. Grant Dawson and Diego Faea. Faea plus 200 underdog. It's Grant Dawson a minus 245 favorite. Okay, Dan, tell me why Grant Dawson is a minus 245 favorite to Diego Faea.
I don't know the age model, because I'm with you. I sense that you are on Diego Faea here, and I am as well.
Did you see what he did to Rybecki's face?
Yeah.
I mean, Grant Dawson, if he takes like 2 of those punches, might be like snoozing. He literally might just be taking a nap on the octagon for like 5 minutes while they announce the winner.
Yeah, man. He's in danger. He's in fucking danger.
This is a bad matchup for Grant Dawson. I think this is the UFC saying, Grant Dawson, we don't love your style, and we're going to put you up against someone who has a great get-up game. So if you take him down, he's got a phenomenal get-up game. He's also got submissions off his back. He's dangerous off his back. So even if, obviously, Grant Dawson is going to go for takedowns, he is going to be a threat off his back. Hopefully he doesn't get too comfortable on his back, because that would be bad against Grant Dawson, who will want to just hang out on top of you. But he's got a good get-up game. And on the feet, Dan, he's got power. He's got crazy cardio. And even when he looks tired, he still carries some power, and he's dangerous. Those are bad things for Grant Dawson, because Grant Dawson could win round 1, like easily win round 1. And then, like, all of a sudden, round 2 starts back on the feet. Grant Dawson comes in for an entry, and he gets caught. And he gets caught in a way where he doesn't get back up caught. You know what I mean? It's not like Rybecki, where Rybecki was just eating shots. Like, I don't think Grant Dawson is going to be able to eat that many shots before they just stop the fight. Because I'm pretty sure they had to stop the fight. I can't even, like, he was that, like, messed up. Like, his eyes were almost shut. Both eyes. Rybecki's eyes were literally
9 seconds to go.
Yeah, dude, remember it though? His eyes, like, he literally almost couldn't see.
I remember, because I was really heavy on Rybecki, and I'm pretty sure when I went to go, like,
the biggest favorite on the card.
Yeah, I went to go look over the slate the next day. I'm pretty sure I was top Rybecki, which was like, it's really pissed me off.
That makes sense though, because he was the biggest favorite on the card. He had massive upside. The first round, he was good, and Diego Faea said before the fight, he was talking. He was like, I used to be him, where, like, you come out hot, you don't care about anything, you know, and you just, like, throw it all out there. And he's like, now I'm older, I can't do that. So I just kind of, like, outlast it. You know what I mean? Like, I just kind of wait for you to get tired, and then I start to, like, gradually build up. So, you know, I think this is a really good fight, though, for Faea, just because we know Grant Dawson has no chin. Like, if Grant Dawson has to stand with Diego Faea for some of this fight, and it's not just constantly getting takedowns, I think he's in trouble. And I think he's in trouble, like, quick.
Yeah. I definitely don't want to discount, though, the possibility that Grant Dawson can just get the takedowns, get some control, and land some ground and pound, because he's got really great takedowns, really great top control, great ground and pound. Like, he's very good, and that's, you know, the line. That's probably what the line has to do. But I think it's a bit wide and discounts Faea, what we already talked about. He's got great get up ability. And
I got a question for you. So Grant Dawson is kind of similar to Rinya in the way that once he takes you down, it's hard to get back up.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see these scores where Grant Dawson's got 2 or 3 takedowns, but he's got 10, 12 minutes of control time in a 3-round fight. So in those scenarios, the one thing I will say, which kind of bodes well for Grant Dawson from a DFS side, is Faeda's got a very good get-up game. So if Faea can get up and Grant Dawson can get more takedowns than just 2 or 3, he could put up a massive score if he won a decision, if he could keep that pace up. The question is, do we think he could keep that pace up for 3 rounds if, like, Faea is constantly getting up?
Well, the thing is, too, I mean, Faea is just dangerous. Like, you get him on the mat. Yeah, Dawson's a BJJ black belt, but Faea Faea's a third degree BJJ black belt, so
He's very dangerous.
He's more credentialed than he is. I think he's more dangerous on the feet and on the mat. So, it's up to Grant Dawson to sort of stay. He has to stay safe.
Listen, Dan, if he starts to get scared of going to the ground with this guy, then he's in really, really big trouble.
Yeah,
if he's scared of that. So I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think that he's definitely in danger. So, but this is a good DFS fight. I could see both guys having big scores depending on how this fight goes, because I don't think he's going to be able to just straight up control Diego for 3 rounds like that, like he does to most guys. I don't think that's going to be the case. So if Grant Dawson, can win even without controlling him for that long, I think that means he got a bunch of takedowns. Like instead of 3, he's getting like 6, 7, 8. And that's going to score massive.
He's also only 9K, which you compared him to Nakamura before. Nakamura's 9,600. Dawson's a flat 9K. You can fit Dawson in way more good lineups. So I don't hate Dawson as a play. He's going to be about 24% owned, which that projection feels low. I feel like guys like him usually come in a little bit higher than my projection usually has them, around like 5%. So I could see him touch the 30s or so. I don't love that. I'm not going to be getting that heavy on him, but he's viable. I'll probably have like 20, 24%, something like that.
Yeah, I like this fight. I don't want to, just because I'm betting Diego Faea, I'm going to have more of him in DFS just because I do like him to win this fight. I do think he has finishing upside too, because I could see him knocking him out. Like that wouldn't shock me at all if he knocked out Grant Dawson, or like the fight stopped, whatever.
He's probably my second favorite dog after Morab, especially in this like lower 7K range. He's, Morab is the obvious number 1, but after that, Faea is right there.
Are we counting? Are we saying like as like a big dog, or are we counting like the closer dogs too? Like he's your favorite dog overall, or second favorite dog overall? Or were you just talking long shots?
Just in this like 7,500 and below range. Okay. It's like lower 7K range. He's my favorite after Morab.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think we're, kind of on par with this fight. So who did you pick to win, Dan?
I picked Faea straight up.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. All right. There we go. Man, we're agreeing a little bit on this card already, and we're only like a few fights in.
It's a new year.
Wow, this is crazy. I don't know if this is gonna keep up, but you never know. You never know.
Well, we don't have the Islam Arman fight to disagree on here, because I was gonna pick Islam.
I know, man. We could have fought really good about that fight. It would have been fun. All right, let's go to the next fight here. Bogdan Gusoff. Gusoff sitting 9,100, coming off of 2 KO wins last time out against Ryan Spann, versus Billy Elakina. I don't know if I said that name right, but Dan, I watched a little bit of Elakina. He doesn't like stand out to me at all. Kind of a slow starter. Not a ton of finishes either, which I don't love, with I think only 7 wins. Not obviously in the UFC, but like 7 wins, I think 1 loss, and only like I think 3 finishes. Maybe I'm off there, but when I watched him, I could kind of see why. Like he's not really special anywhere. I could see him maybe trying to employ some of like the wrestling and trying to take this fight to the ground, because we've seen Gusoff get controlled on the ground at times in his UFC, but I don't think that's going to work. And I think Gusoff's going to find a finish at some point, just because I think his striking is levels ahead. And I think this is a major step up for Elakina. So I'm on the Gusoff side, 7,100 for Elakina. I'm probably not going to have any of. I doubt he's going to be very popular. Gusoff at 9,100 though. It's interesting. I don't know. He like sits in that range with like Grant Dawson, Zachary Reese. Like I feel like he's like the guy I feel the safest with from like I think he gets a finish. I just don't know if he has like the highest upside because he doesn't really. I don't think he's gonna wrestle. He could. I mean, he could throw a takedown in there, but I don't think he's going to.
Who, Guskov?
Yeah,
I think Guskov's just going to go out there and wing punches and try to take this guy's head off. And I think he's going to be successful. I saw the same things you did when I watched Elana. I believe the fight that I watched was sort of like the PFL's version of like Contender Series, right? He won that fight by decision. The PFL said no, thank you.
I would have said no, thank you.
Yeah, he went to go fight in some organization called Lights Out Extreme Fighting. After that, won by knockout. I couldn't find that fight anywhere. I looked for it. I looked on YouTube. Maybe
like the striking of Guskov is way better than any of the guys he's fought. Like the power.
I don't think Guskov is really very good either, but
I still think he's step levels ahead of this kid.
You think levels? I don't know about level. I guess. I mean,
this kid shows no, like I see no danger for Guskov.
Nothing, right? Yeah.
I don't, unless somehow he gets him down flat on his back or something like that, which maybe, but
yeah,
I don't think so.
He's also really hittable. I think he's like pretty confident. His grappling is like okay. He's like,
you can like back him up against the cage easy too. Like if he just pressures him a little bit, which I think he's going to just like you said, kind of wing punches and pressure him, like he's going to find a shot and it might be early. So maybe we're talking myself into playing some of him for DFS because I could see an early finish.
Who, with Guskov? Yeah, Guskov, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like his best win condition. This sort of reminds me of last week though. What was it? It was Bruno Lopez and Gadziazulov. Like I don't really think that.
See, no, because Gadziazulov's one of those like he's like he likes to stay at kicking range, right? So he likes to be completely like in like grappling and clinch exchanges, or he likes to be at kicking range because he's got really good kicks. Those type of guys, I feel like, have a tougher time getting in those firefights because of the range they like to stay. They need the other guy to kind of force the action. Whereas like Guskov, I think, is going to want to go into the fire. He's going to want to be in punching range, which is different than kicking range. So like, I think he's got a better shot of finishing him than like Gadziazulov does.
Definitely. And I agree there. I think I sort of meant just kind of more like the way the line is, the way the line is like similar. And we just saw like a pretty big upset last. I could see, Elana kind of like pushing Guskov up against the cage. Maybe he takes him down.
Maybe.
Takes him down. Like, obviously
I think that's gonna be his path.
Yeah, all the danger
striking is gonna be his path.
Right, because Guskov is dangerous, right? So you want to kind of like close the distance there and probably shove him up against the cage. It made me it reminded me of last week's light heavyweight fight, which was fucking awful to watch.
So are you gonna have any Alacana?
I definitely will. Yeah, he's cheap enough. And like Guskov is fun. I love watching him knock people out, but I don't think he's particularly good. And like I did a little bit of a study of all of last season's slates. And I posted it in our Discord. It's pinned, but dogs down here, they're way too overlooked. They don't get played nearly enough. A fighter below like 75K was optimal, about a third of the time. And this is the kind of matchup where you look at this guy Elana, it's like 7,100. He kind of sucks. Guskov is people like him because he knocks people out in exciting fashion, but he's actually not that great, and he's not bulletproof. Nobody in this sport is fucking bulletproof. So I think Elana, he's live, and at 7,100, he really doesn't have to do much.
Maybe Alex Pereira. I don't know. I don't know. He's got like the spirits behind him or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So you're gonna have a little Alacana. I would be more on the Guskov side, but we both think Guskov wins. Play. Yeah,
I spent way too much time talking up Elana, but it just sort of
it's all right.
Seemed like a good example of like just don't be afraid to target these these guys who fucking suck. Because a lot of times the favorite they're fighting also sucks and has massive holes in their game. And like it could just be as simple as he fucking holds him up against the cage and Gusoff can't do shit about it. You don't know.
Yeah, which could easily be the case here. But I don't think he's gonna be like, I think Gusoff's gonna just have the power advantage just overall, but maybe I'm wrong. And
I do like Gusoff, just to make it clear. Like, and 9,100 is a fucking awesome price for what is like 66. He's actually got some of the best first round finishing odds on the entire card at 9,100. So
just
like,
in my head, I was thinking about that, and I was like, he's got to have some of the better first round finishing odds. Just
I'm gonna have a shitload of Gusoff. Don't get me wrong, but Elana 12%, like I can get there easily.
All right, let's see if you can get to either of these two. Zachary Reese versus Asmat Bakoyev. Bakoyev a -192 favorite. Now this was a switch up here because I think Zachary Reese was supposed to fight Cedricus Dumas. Dumas not fighting anymore, so Asmat gets pulled in. He's got an interesting story. I guess like was I watching the weigh-in show? Something I couldn't remember. So someone was talking about it, how like Mick Maynard and those guys told him he needs to go like get a finish, like where he was fighting. So then like he went out and got a finish, and then like he waited for Mick Maynard out of somewhere and like said like I got my finish and stuff, and Mick was just like, sure, the next time we need a call up, like you'll be the first one. You'll be like the first one to call in. So he got him his spot. Asmat's interesting. When I watched him, I can see why the UFC wouldn't be like, oh, please come on in, because he's one of those guys that's skilled. He's 18-3. Normally when you're 18-3, like UFC would be like, come on in. Like that's a lot of fights, right, Dan? That's a lot of, you know, wins, but for whatever reason they didn't. And I think the reason behind it is just like his style is not fun. His style is he's not like knocking people out unconscious. He's not like super dangerous when it gets to the ground, but he has good ground game, has a really good single leg. He actually like solely looks for the single. Like if you throw kicks, he's looking to catch the kick right into a single leg. And then from there, like get you down. He likes those trips from the single leg position. So he's tricky. You know what I mean? When he gets you up against the cage, it's almost always single leg, rip you down. And he's got like the skills even when he's tired to wrestle. So he does have that upside, but like his knockout, Dan, I don't know if you watched his last fight where he got the knockout. It was literally at one point, these guys were just like trading blows. It reminded me of like old school WWF where you'd like hit them, they'd go back, and then they'd come back in, and the other guy would hit them, and they'd trade blows left and right where their head was just, there was no blocking, Dan. There was nothing. It was just their head would go right back in and then back, and they'd trade him off for like 3. So it was like a slugfest, and he kind of just caught the dude on the chin after like 4 shots.
It wasn't really a technical exhibition.
No, it was not. To me, it was a little luck involved in that thing. Either of those guys could have got caught on the chin, but he did win. And I don't want it to sound like he doesn't have skills, though. He's definitely skillful, and he has wrestling upside. Zachary Reese has grappling upside, though, and he's long. This is a dangerous fight, I think, for Asmat just because of his style. And when he gets in trouble, he will panic wrestle. And he's got to be careful of the grappling with Zachary Reese. Even off his back, he's got to be careful. So I think Zachary Reese is a good dog at the price. It seems like I think it's tightening too, Dan. I don't know for sure. Did it open a little wider than this? It's 160 right now on DraftKings.
Yeah, so I got Reese at plus 166. Bakoyev minus 191. Yeah, that's about what DraftKings has. Okay. Yeah, I mean, for these lines, Reese is overpriced by about 1K, I'd say. Bakoyev is obviously fairly priced because they just added him. I think Bakoyev is actually the one with the grappling advantage. And I think Reese's best path in this fight is going to have to be, catching Bakoyev and knocking him out, which I don't think he's ever been knocked out. Of course, he hasn't been fighting, super high level competition.
He's never been knocked out. No,
I think Bakoyev might. I think like skills wise, Bakoyev kind of has Reese everywhere. Reese is a prospect, but he's not exactly young. So a lot of times with guys like this, and Carpenter is sort of a similar story. It's like when you get to this age and you're still just sort of like up and coming prospect, like you sort of just like are what you are, especially physically. If anything, like physically, you'll soon start to decline. But I definitely like prefer Bakoyev here, but I think Reese is super interesting. Like his ownership is going to get way depressed because he's just too expensive, but he's definitely got like slate winning upside. Like I have no doubt. Like Bakoyev has never actually been knocked out, but he's been hurt and wobbled in fights before. He's just never been actually finished. So I think Reese, he's super powerful, super long, rangy. I think he can definitely find Bakoyev's chin, knock him out. And, again, he's going to be about 15% owned because he's so overpriced. But, I don't. We'll talk about Moicano later. Moicano is massively, massively fucking overpriced. I really don't want to play him at all. But Reese, I think, is interesting for sure.
Yeah, I kind of like Reese inside the distance. And to this point too, where you talked about it, Reese in all of his fights, but his last fight, they've all ended inside the distance. So he's had like 9 fights. He's 8-1. All of his fights, but his last fight against Jose Medina, who we've seen this dude take a beating from others and go 3 rounds just as like a straight punching bag. So that dude is tough. So not finishing him, I don't know if I ding him too much for that. And like you said, and like you said, the step up for Asmat is definitely there. Dude, Asmat went to a split decision with Dylan Budka. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know, and I watched that entire fight, and
it's not great.
mean, Dylan Budka was very live in that fight. I like watching that fight. I thought there was a case to be made that Dylan Budka could have won that fight easily. I think in the end, he had more significant strikes, but Asmat had 5 takedowns to his like 1 or whatever, and like 4 or 5 minutes of control time to Budka's like 1 or less than that, something like that. So I think in the end, that's what won him the fight, Dan, was those extra takedowns. But I will just say, like, it's still concerning because we all know Dylan Budka's not like the greatest fighter. You split decision with him. I don't know. Zachary Reese, I think, is a little better than Dylan Budka, but like I think this is a close fight. I think plus 160 odds. I take the dog here plus 160 odds. I think Zachary Reese has finishing upside too. Asmat's been finished once. It was by sub, not by knockout. But I got to take the dog here. I think this should be a closer fight.
Another thing I kind of just like don't really like about Reese in his game is that like he is very willing to sort of, once he gets taken down, he's like willing to kind of stay on his back and stay in guard and sort of just like play jujitsu and try to throw up subs from his back, which, you're losing minutes. And I don't really think Bakoyev obviously is not like a standout talent, but I don't think you want to be giving up control like that to him.
Especially because I think you can get up against a guy like Bakoyev. I don't think I think his takedowns are good. I don't know if his control is like amazing. So I think like Dylan Budka was just threatening Kimuras to get up, and he was like just threatening submissions from his back and stuff. Like right when he get taken down, he transition to something. If Zachary Reese is smart, he'd be doing the exact same thing. He'd be looking at that going, okay, like if this is what's going to happen, I'm the longer guy. I gotta be able to do stuff like that just to threaten enough to get to my feet. You don't have to threaten it to actually sub the guy. Just get back to the feet. Because like you said, he's going to have the height. I think he's got the power advantage too, the striking advantage slightly. And, I do think he could find a KO here. So
I think I think they're both really solid plays at ownership, but
I agree. Because Asmat has the takedowns. So like he could get 5-6 takedowns here. That wouldn't shock me at all. But
I think he's lined at like 3.5. So yeah, that's totally within the realm of possibility.
I mean, if he's winning, I don't see how he's winning and not getting like 4+.
Possibly.
But all right, let's go to the next fight here. This one should be quick. Peyton Talbot and Hani Barcelos. Peyton Talbot, a -1050 favorite. Dan, I mean, are you betting Talbot like inside the distance? What are you doing with him? His KO number sitting at -185, submission +600.
I'm just gonna pass on this fight, like betting wise. I'm just not gonna touch it. I'm just gonna sit back, enjoy. I'll probably be playing Talbot like fairly heavily. I mean, he rates out insane. I actually had a friend text me today, and he was like, "Why is Barcelos like a +7 something hundred favorite? Like he's good." I was like, "Yeah, but he's a fucking 37-year-old bantamweight, and this kid Talbot is like." Like he looks like the real deal, man. And really the main thing it comes down to is just like the speed discrepancy is gonna loom very large in this matchup. Like Talbot is fast, he's aggressive, he's powerful, like he's inexperienced. Like Barcelos is probably the better grappler and probably the better wrestler, but I just don't think it's gonna matter. I think he's just gonna come out of the gate hot, put it on Barcelos, and just fuck his world up, honestly.
Yeah. So then how do you rank him in DFS? I assume you just have Islam 1, him 2 overall.
Yeah. I mean, I actually have Talbot 1 and Islam 2 by,
oh, wow. Okay.
By like a slight margin. But I mean, I'm going to have more Islam because 5 rounds, whatever. And this is just raw projection for me. So Islam is number 1, but Talbot is number 2, which he's, 9,900 is tough. It's really tough. And I have him projected at about.
I just don't think it's as tough because of how many cheap plays are on this slate. Yeah. Like you said, they kind of cut off the mid tier a lot in this slate. So there's a lot of. So I think you're going to get a lot of builds with two cheap dogs. Like those are going to be most of the builds. They're going to have 2 of these cheap dogs and then 2 spend ups, and then whatever else to finish out your team, like the Yuri Hill, Kevin Holland, Deritter, those type of line fights with the price tags. It will be like the popular builds, I think.
Yeah, and just like to touch on like the little study I did of last year's slates. Like you had 3 dogs in a lineup optimal, like 43% of the time. 2 dogs 48% of the time. So, and then 10% you had 1 dog optimal, and those were usually like dupe fests, like very highly duped lineups there. So, this feels like kind of like a three dog optimal type of night. So I can definitely see being able to fit like Islam and Talbot in the same lineup, and he's projected to be about 20% owned. Like I'm probably going to be at or around that just because I do like a lot of the top options. So going to have to spread out. I think I might have to rethink like totally locking MAKHACHEV because that's just going to kind of constrict what I can do like throughout my portfolio. But man, he's just like, we'll get to him, but MAKHACHEV is just like such a standout play now that he's fighting.
Such a good play.
Yeah, it's tough. But Talbot, I think he rolls. I really have little to no interest in Barcelos. Like, can he catch Talbot in something? Sure. I just really don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I think the speed's going to be like the biggest factor in this fight. The speed difference is going to be pretty big here, and Talbot's going to roll. All right, we both like Talbot. Let's go to. We got 5 fights left on the card. We got Deritter, 7,900 for Deritter versus Kevin Holland, 8,300 for Kevin Holland, but a slight dog to Deritter here. Deritter sitting a -122 favorite over at DK Sportsbook. Kevin Holland, you can get at +102 over there. The over 2.5 is plus money too, plus 120 if you like the over, which is kind of interesting here. Dan, what are you seeing here with this fight? I mean, Kevin Holland's got the favorite DraftKings price tag, but he's flipped into a slight dog here.
Yeah, Deritter is one of the dogs that I've been referencing, like that's going to be popular, but I think he's going to be popular for good reason. Obviously, the line's flipped towards him, so he's a favorite at dog prices. I always like to attack that, and I think it's warranted. It's a really binary matchup. Holland definitely. I mean, if you watch like Deritter's UFC debut, it was entertaining, but it was definitely like sloppy as shit. You know, he's definitely not any kind of.
Dan, that was like I'm trying to find some way not to say the fight like just completely sucked. So you're just like
it didn't completely suck.
It was entertaining.
It was entertaining. Hey, sometimes it's, you know,
bro, those guys were like crawling on the ground towards the end of that fight. It was like who could crawl faster to the other.
I don't know. Part of what I like about fighting is that it can be completely absurd and fucking stupid sometimes. And that's most GM3 fights. And we love GM3. So, well, what's not to love there? But yeah, obviously not like the most technical striker coming from RDR. And Holland is a much better striker. There's just like there's a lot of stuff going against Holland here. So for one thing, you know, he's very rangy. He uses that karate stance. He likes to sort of like get in, get out, and he's usually the rangier guy, but that's down at welterweight, and this is going to be up at middleweight. So Kevin Holland, I feel like Kevin Holland like really thrives down at welterweight, where he does have like a size and reach advantage. He's not going to have that up at 185, and things haven't necessarily gone great for him up at 185. I mean, I know last time was an injury, but if you look back, like his better performances are definitely at welterweight, where he can use like his size and reach to his advantage. The other thing going against Kevin Holland here is that, you know, RDR is a primary grappler. He wants to get you to the ground and submit you like he did with GM3. And Kevin Holland I believe he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but you wouldn't know it because he's just like absolutely terrible off of his back. Like he can be taken down, he can be controlled. And I think like he can definitely be submitted by RDR here. And I think that's what's going to happen. If this fight stays on the feet, then it's advantage Holland. And of course, all fights start on the feet. So Holland is definitely live to, you know, jump out to a fast start and even knock RDR out. I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility, but I just think RDR, he's going to have like a slight he's probably going to have like a physicality advantage because he's at his true weight class. And he has fought up at heavyweight before, whereas, you know, Holland is coming up from welterweight. So I think there's definitely going to be a physicality advantage on the side of RDR. And if and when he gets the fight to the mat, that's huge advantage RDR in my mind. So I think this eventually does get to the mat. And I think once it does, you know, Holland's in deep shit.
Yeah, if this fight burns me, it burns me, but I can't do the RDR. I'm sorry. I watched it. I watched this.
He was nearly optimal. He was nearly optimal that last fight with a fucking third round finish at 110. Like
listen, if he gets a bunch of takedowns and finds a third round finish and he scores, fine, he's going to be optimal, whatever. But Kevin Holland is so much of a better strike. I mean, that was against GM3. Kevin Holland is so much more of a better striker than GM3 is. I mean, the speed, the accuracy, everything. Like, and on top of it, you're acting like Kevin Holland is not dangerous at all on the mat. He's subbed out dudes on the mat. Like, he's subbed out people from his back. Like, I think this is a bad spot for RDR, and I like Kevin Holland at plus money. And I know the line's flipped, but the Raiders just showed me like absolutely nothing. Like that dude is a fish out of water everywhere, but on top. And if he is not in those grappling situations and he has to stand with Kevin Holland, he's going to walk into a knockout, like guaranteed. He will knock in. If he's not taking this dude down, he's going to get knocked out. So
yeah, I mean, if this were like if this were a straight striking match, like I'd agree with you fully, but it's an MMA
striking match. The line would be like minus 300 Kevin Holland if this was a straight striking match. Easily.
I think this is hitting the mat. And I honestly, I also disagree. I don't think Holland is really any kind of threat to RDR in the ground. Like, I think RDR is a much better grappler, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, like, you know, you can't take anything away from the guy, but Holland, his subs, Chiesa, that's good, but that's 2023 Michael Chiesa, who is like,
I mean, we still see Michael Chiesa. That's his game too. That's like his world, by the way. Like that's where
offensively, but like he's super suspect defensively. Like Michael Chiesa can get fucking dark.
I'm not saying Michael Chiesa is anything to like gloat about. I'm just saying like, he
Darce choked Tim Means in 2022. That's pretty good. But then armbar over Mikey O. Like I don't think he's got some submissions, but I don't think it's like top level.
And again, like he's long too. He's got like that lanky type, like so he could.
But he won't have that advantage in this matchup.
He won't.
He is the taller, lankier guy. But
no, his advantage is going to be, I think if he's doing submissions, it's just to get back up. I don't think he's doing them to like threaten a actual submission. I think he's going to have to scramble hard. I think he's going to have to try and stay out of the grappling exchanges as best he can and then keep it on the feet. Because the longer it stays on the feet, this is what I'm saying. Like, if this fight plays out longer and longer it goes on the feet, the more of a chance I think he has of just finding the finish, like the finish coming to him. Because when I watched Deritter in his stand-up, like, he is so uncomfortable standing up. It's so uncomfortable. So the one thing I will say that's a little worrisome is Kevin Holland doesn't give a shit about this fight. Like, I don't know if you listened
about anything, dude.
Did you listen to him and Rampage Jackson going back and forth?
Didn't know.
He literally said it. He's like, I don't give a shit about my upcoming fight or who I'm fighting. Like, but that just told me, like, I don't think he cares at all about any of these guys. I think he just does it for the. He does it for the money. He's just a whatever guy. He'll take any matchup. He'll fight anyone.
Well, that's the thing. He fights like 5 times a year. And the way he does that is he takes fights like this where he's like not having to cut weight. So he'll fight up at middleweight when he really if he really gave a shit about like his career trajectory or
he doesn't.
I think he knows he's not fighting for a title. Like that shit.
I mean, he's calling Rampage Jackson like a fucking pussy and stuff like that. Rampage is like, you don't want to fight me, bro. Kevin Holland's like, nah, I want to fight you. Like, I want to fight you.
Well, so on that note too, what's also concerning is Kevin Holland. The last time we saw him fight, he was fighting Roman Dolidze, and he had to stop after the first round because he hurt his rib.
Yeah, he hurt his rib.
That was like 2 months ago. Like, how long does a broken rib take to heal? Probably around 2 months.
So I don't know. I've had like I've had like a fucked up rib where it like kind of like slid out of place, and it was super painful.
Yeah.
And it took about like 2 weeks probably to fully heal. I think like 2 weeks for it to like, fully heal. And then like I didn't use like heavy, like weights and stuff for probably another week or two just to make sure. But like, yeah, it's probably.
Obviously, we don't know. We don't know how bad it was, but it's just like you take the fact that he doesn't really give a shit.
I will say that must fucking hurt.
Yeah.
If he broke his ribs.
But what's his training been like,
Is that what happened? Did he actually break his rib?
I mean, we don't get like injury reporting, so all it is like he injured his rib, and we don't know the extent of it.
Yeah,
I can't imagine. That was.
It could have just been what happened to me, where it just like kind of moved a little bit, like
super minor, but we have no idea. And like the way the line has moved towards RDR, or I don't know if it was.
It's painful though. Yeah, it's painful.
The way the line has flipped, like, kind of leads me to believe that somebody knows something. And it's like everything we've been talking about, like how he goes up a weight class to take more fights, and he's like about the money and like all this. It's like, you absolutely do not put it past Kevin Holland to take this fight knowing like,
well, that's the thing.
I'm probably going to lose, but I'm going to get paid.
Here's the thing. This is a very simple fight. Wherever you see this fight playing out, one path is one guy, the other path is the other guy. So if you see this fight playing out on the ground, then Deritter's going to probably win. You know what I mean? That's just the facts. And if you see this fight where it can stay standing, then, Holland's probably going to win. But yeah, it just depends on where you see it.
Holland's takedown defense is also not fucking good at all. It's bad.
It's suspect.
It's bad. He's defending takedowns at like 54%. So I think, Deritter is going to be desperate to get this to the ground. I think he's going to get it there.
Yeah, I think he's got to try and catch him coming in. I think that's Kevin Holland's best time in something right up the middle. Right up the middle.
His win condition is a knockout. And, at 8,300, if he wins, which, he absolutely fucking could, then he's going to be nutted. So I really like this fight.
I mean, it's a good fight. Honestly, you could just kind of go in on this fight and be like, the winner could be optimal. Like,
it's gonna be a fun matchup too. Like, this fight is gonna be stupid as fuck.
Well, and if this fight goes to decision, how is Deritter not scoring a bunch of takedowns?
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't find a finish, right? Like, how is he not scoring? So I'm probably looking at this.
Control.
I'm gonna bet Kevin Holland. And I'm going to play some of both these guys in DFS is probably what I'll end up doing is my hedge, because I do think this fight could be optimal. And like you said, we don't have many of these mid-tier fights. Like, what do we got? 2 or 3?
Yeah, it's
Yuri. It's Yuri. It's this one. And am I missing one?
No, it's pretty much it. Unless you want to
include... so it's literally Yuri. And honestly, this is a way better fight, I think, than the Yuri one. Like the Yuri
in general.
For DFS. No, for DFS. Like for scoring upside. For scoring upside, I think this is a way better fight.
I am kind of with you.
Because one guy's got the takedown upside and the other one's got like the knockout upside, and you can play them both. Whereas like on the other side, I think it's just both guys going for a knockout.
Well, the obvious great part about this fight, Holland Deritter, is like with the pricing, you can get a finish in any round, and it's live to be optimal.
And it's live.
You don't need it in the first round.
Exactly.
I can't like overemphasize. Like, I think this fight is gonna be really fucking stupid. And usually when they're stupid, there's a lot of scoring going on.
All right, that's it. We're riding this fight. We're back together here, Dan. We're gonna jam this fight.
Yes.
We're in. All right, I love that. Let's see here. Next fight on the card. We got 4 more left. Here, Jailton Almeida, another big favorite here, minus 485 on DK Sportsbook versus Sergey Spivok, a plus 370 underdog here. Jailton Almeida sitting at 9,500. Spivok 6,700 on DraftKings. Dan, who do you like in this fight? I mean, I assume you like Almeida, but tell me why if you don't.
Yeah, it's Almeida.
Yeah.
I mean, for pretty obvious reasons. He's just he's a freak, like, physical specimen. His takedowns are great. He mixes them in super heavily. He relentlessly pursues the takedowns, almost to a fault, like that Curtis Blades fight. But he's gonna get the fight to the ground, and once he gets it down there, Spivak's not a bad BJJ guy for a heavyweight, but I just don't. I just think Almeida is levels above. This is a pretty big step down in competition for Almeida, and I think, the company has got to be getting in his ear, like, we need more finishes from you, because
you would think so.
Because I just always think about his fight against Derek Lewis and how awful that was, and ever since then, he seems to have more urgency.
I think the UFC is going to be very careful about putting this guy in like 5-round fight situations until he gets a couple finishes.
Yeah, but last time out against Romanov is one of the better wrestlers in the division, and Romanov did seem pretty badly out of shape in that fight, if I'm being perfectly honest. But he just ran through him like it was no problem. Just one of the best wrestlers in the heavyweight division. Took him down, got on top of him, choked him the fuck out like it was nothing. And I like Spivak when he's fighting, kind of the lower tier of heavy. There aren't a lot of guys who can hang with Spivak's jiu-jitsu. Like, we just saw it when he fought Tybura.
Yeah, he reversed positions after getting taken down and then
hit the arm bar, and that was that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I just think Almeida is like several levels above. He's obviously one of the best targets as well. His ownership he's going to come in probably lower on this slate just because of all the salary weirdness we have and the massive favorites we have. So he'll probably be a little more overlooked than usual. I say that, and then he'll probably come in, like 10% higher than I projected him. But I mean, he's a great fucking play. Super live for an early finish. He actually does have the best round 1 odds on the entire card.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say for me, it's probably it's between him and Talbot for one.
I mean, dude, that Blades fight where he got caught super low IQ moment and just let Blades hammer on his fucking head. He landed a ridiculous amount of takedowns in that first round.
Oh, it was crazy. Yeah.
He just left himself open to get hammer fisted for some reason. Yeah, I'm looking.
I might go him as my top guy after Islam.
Almeida,
might be him then Talbot.
I mean that Almeida doesn't even need a finish to hit the optimal at 9,500 because he's just
that's why I like him.
Around. But I think he does get the finish. Yeah, he had 9 takedowns on Blades in that round. And again, Blades is supposed to be one of the better wrestlers of the division, and he just made him look fucking silly before getting knocked out.
Yeah, I think this Jailton, I think he can find a finish too. Spivok's tough, but I think Jailton's just a little above Spivok, and it's got to be looking to finish fights. Like I'm sure the UFC's in his ear about getting more finishes and stuff like that. So,
well, like Spivok, while Spivok is one of the better jiu-jitsu guys in the heavyweight division, his wrestling isn't that great, honestly. Like he can be taken down.
He can be taken down. Yeah, he can be taken down 100%. So, yeah, I think that's more of a cut and dry one. Let's go to more of a coin flip fight here. Not many on this card, but Jamal Hill, Sweet Dreams, 8,200 on DraftKings here versus Yuri Prochazka, my personal favorite fighter to talk about in the world. Yuri Prochazka sitting at a plus 110 underdog. Jamal Hill minus 130. Dan, I don't know if either of these two fighters are as good as people think. Personally, I know that Yuri's not. I've been saying that for however long we've been doing the show. Christine is not on to, just talk up Yuri to no end and say how great he is, which
Christine was supposed to be here to defend his honor.
She wanted to be here, but she is still recovering. She's sick. She's not feeling good. She DM'd me. She really wanted to be on the show.
Get well soon.
Yeah. She'll be fine. She didn't want to be coughing and, stuff like that. I respect it, but
don't get me sick.
This is one of those fights where I don't love either side, but I feel like even though I think Yuri is just super tough and he's not as skillful as Jamal Hill when it comes to striking and stuff like that, I think Jamal Hill is a better boxer and stuff. I think Yuri's just going to win again. I mean, a lot of his wins, I think the other guy is the more talented guy and he'll win. You know what I mean? So this is an ongoing theme with me outside of the Pereira fights, because obviously those are the two fights that he lost. But why did he lose those fights? He lost those fights because he finally found someone that he couldn't just walk through the power of.
Also dark magic.
Also dark magic, but he couldn't walk through the power of Alex Pereira, and Alex Pereira is the worst matchup for him because his leg kicks are ridiculous, and Yuri doesn't check leg kicks at all because he doesn't care at all. He just literally does not care. He'll just walk right through them. He doesn't have to worry about that as much with Jamal Hill. So I think that's a plus for Yuri on his side, that he's not going to have to worry about his last two other fighters, Rakic and Pereira. Those were that's leg kick central. That's leg kick death right there. Those guys, they're constantly throwing leg kicks. And if you watch that Rakic fight, Yuri was losing the fight until he was winning at the very end when he knocked him down and out. He was losing that fight up till that point. So I think that Yuri finds a finish at some point. I think that he's going to lose. I think he's going to be losing the fight until he just says, fuck it, and walks right through Jamal and knocks him out. And I think that's what happens here. So, I'm going Yuri. I don't, It's not a fight that I'm like super confident in because you guys know I hate Yuri. I can't believe I'm picking him, but I, I don't think Jamal Hill's that
hate
guy.
Him? What's the hate?
I hate him. I just no. When I say I hate him,
As
I
a
just
fighter?
don't. I don't think he's super talented as everyone thinks. So I don't like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think
Like
he's like.
he's like overrated.
I think he's overrated. Yeah, I shouldn't say hate. Hate's a bad word. I don't hate Yuri. I just think he's overrated. And yeah, no, I don't hate anyone. So hate's a bad word, but I think he's overrated. And I think that the way people talk about him is a little overblown. That's more it. Think about it. Like Christine, like literally was talking about him like he was the greatest fighter in the world just a fight ago. So
well, Christine wants to marry the guy, Like,
well, I mean that's a little different though. You can say someone's great, but not like the greatest. You know what I mean? Still want to marry him. Like it's fine, but we're talking about fighting here, Dan. All right, we're not talking about marrying the guy. Like I don't know.
Saying that's why she loves him so much.
Yeah. Does she want to go like train in the woods though? Like that wouldn't be fun. Would she? Maybe she'd like that. Maybe she'd like training in the woods.
I think she'd do it with Yuri. If she could do it with him, she would.
Yeah.
Get fucking bit by a tick.
Yeah, I know, right? Screw that shit. What's funny is though, is like that would actually be like kind of cool. Like training in the woods, like that's probably pretty sick. Not gonna lie. Like, I think he's off, but the training in the woods is kind of badass. I'm not gonna lie.
We were talking about his striking defense and how bad it is, and it's like, yeah, the trees don't hit back. The trees put up no resistance.
Makes sense.
The only like training video I saw from him leading up to this fight was he was like doing some shit on a treadmill. He was like shadow boxing on a fucking treadmill, and I was just like, man, like get to a real fucking gym for the love of God.
Please.
Yeah. I'm picking Jamal Hill, man. We've had a lot of like fun at the expense of Jamal Hill on this show and in our Discord. Like he's a fun guy to kind of like talk shit about. Just because he's like so out there he's not a very like likable personality. And I think that's like depressing the line here because I think he's miles ahead of Yuri in the striking. And while he doesn't have one-shot power, he throws up. He's got, solid enough power to where, with the volume he throws and the way Yuri just like takes punches and doesn't defend at all, I think he can get there just on attrition, just over the course of a couple rounds and eventually break him. I went back and watched the Glover fight and I came away from it more impressed than I had previously. He'll just absolutely dog walked him in that fight. And, next fight he has, he runs it down. What's that?
Dog walked them?
Glover? Yeah, absolutely. I'm talking about Hill dog walking Glover. It was not competitive.
Okay.
Yeah. He fucked him up, man. He fucked him up real bad. Okay. And then it went to decision, but there were a lot of moments in that fight
you're right.
Where it could have been stopped. And is Yuri live to land a knockout and win this fight? Absolutely. 100%. We just saw Jamal Hill get knocked out. So it's definitely in the realm of possibility, but I honestly think Hill is just a far superior striker offensively and defensively.
I mean, you say that and it's like, I think everyone that he fights is far superior to Yuri in those things. He still finds a way to win. Like, I don't know.
Yuri's been relying on having a bit of a granite chin, but he just got knocked out trying to rely
by the best striker in the world, maybe the greatest striker we'll ever see.
Getting wrecked by Rakic before he pulled it.
He was.
That's the thing that we hate about Yuri, right? Though, is that like he's losing until he's winning, and eventually you can't just Homer Simpson your way through the fucking UFC for this long. It's gonna catch up to him. And I think now is a pretty good time for it. This fight, the way it's priced, like 8,200, 8K, the ownership is there. I'm going to be heavier on the hillside, but I'll definitely have a bunch of Jiri too. Like this is like the somebody's going to the fucking hospital fight of the night. Maybe not a hospital 130.
Sounds like you're higher on this fight than you are the fight, the Holland fight.
I love both of these mid-range fights. It's going to be tough because they're pretty high owned, and I want to get to the top end a lot. But
Yeah.
so we'll see how it ultimately shakes out. But if I have to make a choice, my priorities among these two fights are Deritter and Hill, for sure.
All right. Me and Dan split on this fight. Makes me sick. 8K for Yuri, Hill at 8,200. Good DFS plays at those price tags. If someone finds a finish, probably optimal. If we see a finish at some point, probably.
I don't see how it's
close.
not.
The only way I could see it is if multiple if multiple big favorites lose. If we get like 3 big favorites that lose on this card, then I could see it being not optimal. But let's get to the 2 title fights here. We got Umar Nurmagomedov 9,200 versus Morab Dvalishvili sitting at 7K on DraftKings. Right now, price is set. Umar is favored -250. Umar's favored over Morab, sitting a +205 underdog. Is that line tightening a little, Dan? I feel like it was higher yesterday.
It's moved towards Morab.
That's what I thought.
Considerably. Yeah, yesterday he was like kind of floating around like +280 or so. Now
that's what I thought. So there's some big buy on Morab here, which kind of makes sense. I feel like this fight, it felt like it was a little wide when it was when he was +280. I think this is closer to where it should be. You know what I mean? So Morab sitting at 7K though, Dan, for DFS. The upside is massive for DFS because I do think, nonstop takedowns are in the cards here. But you got the one guy who might just be able to nullify that with his own wrestling, and he's got really good striking. This is like the total package. But the question for Umar is going to be, can he hang with the pace and pressure of Morab for 5 rounds? Because Umar is like Morab times 10 when it comes to all around like skill in the UFC. But the pace, the pressure, the cardio, Morab is like times 10 of everybody we've seen, of like anyone we've ever seen, I feel like. But that's the question. Do you think Umar can hang for 5 rounds? Do you think his conditioning can hold up and he can just constantly stuff takedowns, maybe put Morab on the back foot, which I heard DC talk about with, Umar and Morab. And one of the things that can change Morab's like cardio and pace is, constantly, his point was pretty much like in all of Morab's fights, outside of kind of the O'Malley fight where it felt like he got a little tired in that fight. He's never getting tired because he's constantly moving forward. And when you're moving forward and you're not moving backwards, it's much easier. You don't get as gassed, but when you're constantly moving backwards, that's when you start to get tired. And DC's point was kind of like, if Umar can get him moving backwards, if Umar can get him, thinking about it a little bit and pressuring him, maybe Morab's cardio takes a little hit. You know what I mean? So, and we've seen Morab get hurt. I mean, like in all these fights that he's had, it feels like he takes some damage at some point. So, and Umar's got really, really good striking and kicks. I don't know, Dan, what do you think here? Do you think Morab can pull this fight out?
I do. I actually am picking Morab. The market is moving in that direction. I just think Morab is just a different kind of guy, man. Like he puts that pace on you, and I just don't know. Like, Umar, he looks really good. People are kind of anointing him as like, the new class of the bantamweight division. But the Sandhagen win is pretty good. But Sandhagen is extremely solid fighter in the division, but he's not just on that upper tier of guys that Morab has just run through on this, run to the title. Peter Yan, Cejudo, O'Malley, like Umar has beaten, Ronnie Barcelos, Nate Maness. I'm trying to remember which one. Like he got hurt. Oh yeah, it was against Bekzat Almacan. He's a massive favorite. He comes out and he got buzzed. Like, he was hurt early in that fight. It was one of those moments where we were all like, oh shit, like this is about to fucking happen. So I don't think that like people talk about Umar like he's sort of again, like he's like the new class of the division. And I think it's a little premature. I think Morab is just, again, like different kind of guy. The volume he puts on you is insane. The cardio is insane. And Umar hasn't really truly been tested like in the cardio department, his chin. There's a lot of unknowns here. And I just think this is a crazy price still.
Yeah, this fight is another fight that has split decision written all over it. I think that Umar could win the early rounds, Morab could win the late rounds, and it's all about those middle rounds and how the judges see it. I do think for that point, though, Morab at a just over 2-1 favorite seems like a pretty damn good bet. If I think that the fight is close like that in a split decision. The one thing I'll say about Umar, though, is like in that Sandhagen fight, he dominated. Like he didn't just win, he dominated. And some of these guys, like, I think it's a little tougher for them once you start getting up to those like top tier fighters to take those fights. Remember, Morab, the only reason why he ran through all those guys that you said, he could have gotten a title shot probably sooner. He didn't want to fight Aljo. That's why. So, like, we can say all that we want to say about it, but like, Umar, he's getting his chance. He's young. Everyone, like, he trains with Islam. Like, he's the Islam of the division, right? And that's kind of what you were saying, right? Everyone's kind of like putting him in that almost that tier without like actually doing it. And
there are people who have Umar ranked as like the number one bantamweight in the world, like right now already. So, I just can't quite get there. I think he's great. I think this is more of a 50-50 fight, I guess is what I'm getting at, minus.
I mean, I definitely think Umar's got the way better chance of finishing the fight. Like, that's the one knock on Morab that I have in general is, and I think Umar's going to use it to his advantage, but like, I don't think if Morab takes Umar down, he's like terrified at all. Like, like Morab is not one of those guys that he's control. Like, he tries to control you, but he can't even do that. That's why he's getting so many takedowns. It's like, I don't think he's going to just be able to stay on top of Umar. Like, you think he's going to just hold Umar down?
No. I think he's going to take him down like 10 times around.
That's what I'm saying.
I think Umar have to. Like, Umar is the more dangerous of the two. Although, Umar, he does have a recent knockout, but like he over Barcelos, who we already talked about tonight, is kind of like, on the downside of his career. The striking for Umar is still a bit of a work in progress. He's not this, massively
his kicks are really good.
Yeah, but he's not this perennial like KO threat, He's more of a get you down to the mat and rear naked choke you type guy. And Morab's got really solid submission defense. Like, Morab is not lost on the mat at all. So I think he's gonna have a hard time finishing Morab. And I think, it's every Morab fight. I
think if he's finishing him, it's with a body kick. We've seen Morab get hurt to the body before. Yeah. Sean O'Malley hurt him. I think they noticed something from watching Morab fights because he was going for those body shots like constantly when they were standing, because they were obviously constant, but like when they were standing, and he hurt him, I think twice. But one when you saw Morab like grab his stomach and then he started like circling, at one point, and I was like, oh shit, like he's like actually he needs a second, to like catch his breath and stuff like that. But
for sure, that's always going to be a knock on guys like Morab who don't finish, right? Is that they have to beat you the entire fight.
Which
is tough when you're fighting
or 3 of the 5 rounds. They have to win 3 of the 5 rounds and stuff like that.
They have to win 3 out of the 5 rounds and stay out of danger for 5.
And stay out of danger for 3 out of the 5 rounds. Exactly.
But I think Morab, his skill set,
and on top of it, Morab's style is not always judge friendly. You know what I mean? So like judges could, in a round where Morab takes him down like 4 times, but maybe Umar gets a strike in there that like hurts Morab or something like that. Like they could give that round to Umar. You know what I mean? Like, so there's that's the other thing. That's a kind
Bad
of
judging is always
unfortunate.
on the table. Always on the table.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
I mean, just to wrap it up, like I think it's closer to a 50-50 fight.
So we're definitely both Islam over Umar from that pricing standpoint. What's the ownership on Umar coming in at?
38 to Morab's 42. So they're pretty close. It's
I
lower than
think
it should be.
Morab's going to end up being like 50 by the time we get there.
He should be. I think Morab will end up being the highest owned dog, obviously.
100%. It's going to be Islam and Morab as the two highest owned guys on the entire. Maybe Talbot. Maybe. I don't know.
It's Islam and
it's
Morab. Islam and Morab for sure. And we got to figure out a way to shove both of these guys and still get unique, which I don't think is going to be too hard. We've got a lot of low owned plays on this slate.
I mean, definitely the way to get unique would be to fade one of these fights, but you might be completely fucked if you fade one of these fights. So
yeah, man, if I were
best case scenario is like Umar gets like 85 in like a third round finish or something, and Morab doesn't get too many takedowns in the first 2.5 rounds or something like that.
It could totally happen. Part of what I look back on last year's slates was 5-rounders, because we're always talking about, shoving the 5-rounders. 88% of last year's slates, so 37 out of the 42 slates had a 5-rounder in the optimal. And then we had 12 slates that had 2+ 5-rounders, because we had UFC 300 that had 3 5-rounders. But let's see. Yeah, two 5-rounders were optimal 10 out of those 12 times, good for 83% of the time. So obviously it doesn't happen every single time.
I think that makes sense though, Dan. I think it makes sense though. Those 5-rounders are so valuable.
Yeah. A lot of what I kind of came to the realization of while I was looking back on all these past slates was mostly just reinforcing a lot of the points that we hammer home week in and week out, 5-rounders, not leaving too much salary, being willing to play dogs, women's MMA, all the upside there. So I think we've definitely been on the right track this whole time. So I'm shoving both of them. You tell me that something's going to be optimal 88% of the time, I'm just going to do it every time.
Yeah, and if you do it every time, you're going to win. You're going to win more than you lose with that strategy, and that's what you want pretty much. Yep. So I just realized it too, but only one female fight on this card. No wonder why this card's so amazing. I'm just kidding. It's fine. All right, let's get to the final fight on the card here. Islam Makhachev versus Renato Moicano. Renato Moicano sitting a plus 750 underdog to Islam Makhachev, a minus 1,200 favorite over on DraftKings Sportsbook. Islam Makhachev at 9,400 on DraftKings and Moicano at 8,700. Is Moicano going to be the lowest owned fighter on the slate? Jesus, I forgot that he's 8,700. Maybe not lowest owned.
He should be. I mean, well, maybe not.
I mean, it's a 5-round fight, so maybe it won't be.
It's interesting. I'm inclined to just lock Makhachev, honestly. I'm looking at another book. I know you just read the DraftKings number, so there's another book that I use for like my projections and whatnot. They have Makhachev as a minus 1,500 favorite at the moment, and Moicano at plus 900. Which, betting wise, look, I'm probably gonna lock Makhachev, and then if it comes down to it, and I've got like the top Makhachev lineup, I'm probably gonna bet Moicano's money line just to sort of hedge it out a little bit, because plus 900 is, he could win. It's very unlikely, but it could happen. And if I'm depending on Makhachev for like, a bank or something, I'm going to hedge it a little.
Islam is going to roll this. I think Islam first round or two finds a KO. Moicano gets hurt. Yeah, I think he KOs him. Moicano gets hurt a lot. And you can't just rely on the grappling when he gets hurt like he's done in past fights, because that's not going to work against Islam. So I think he finds a finish, and I think he finds it in the first 2 rounds. But that's just
so they finally there are finally markets for this. There actually weren't when we started the show, but now some markets are starting to open up for inside the distance. Do you want to guess what Makhachev inside the distance is right now on
Makhachev inside the distance minus 200?
Dude, it's minus 500.
What?
Yeah. Makhachev inside the distance minus 500. Moicano's plus 1,000.
Damn.
Yeah, Makhachev plus 175 by KO, minus 125 by submission, which that's what I was thinking. He would win by submission.
You think sub?
Yeah. He's just, we like Moicano. I've actually picked against Moicano probably in every one of his most recent fights. And he
always finds a way to win. Like,
yeah, he's one of those guys for me. It's like Moicano, Eileen Perez. They're both on the same fucking card. It's like these two that I pick against all the time and just make me look like an asshole. Diego Lopez, he's another one. Luckily, he's not on the card. But, I mean, God, could it happen? Yeah, because anything can happen in this sport. It's like, it's weird and stupid and crazy, and that's what we love about it. But, man, I have a really hard time getting there.
Yeah, especially at 8,700 too. Like, what? I can't.
Yeah, massively.
Moicano 8,700. So I think I'm going to be with you though. I might just lock the 5 rounders because I don't see how it's probably not on the winner. But like you said, you never know.
Makhachev and Morab to me are like, and that's obvious. They're going to be the highest owned. So
highest owned.
However,
yeah, like if you want to be unique, Umar and Moicano together is going to be like super low owned probably. So
yeah, it's also not going to win.
It's not going to win exactly. But I'm saying from a unique standpoint, if you're trying to build like unique teams, that would be unique.
Yeah, I think the way forward here, getting unique, is sort of like trying to play some of these. I mean, like Diego Ferreira at 18% is pretty good. Some of these favorites up here, though, Sopaj 13%, who we talked about everyone. Zach Reese at 15%. He's a dog now, but like we talked about, the upside is there, even if it is a terrible value.
Yeah,
I think you're going to be getting different in the top range.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is too, there's 13 fights. You're gonna find some dogs to get you a little different outside of Morab because everyone's gonna play Morab. So
luckily we started with 14. Morab, his ownership actually might not get super out of control like it usually does, just because people are so high.
That 7K price tag is just what's like, it's gonna throw people off. I think with the takedowns and the upside. I hope you're right though. I hope you're right.
And obviously median projections like for MMA or not. I don't know. He doesn't project that great. Well, let me organize this by salary. You just see.
Hopefully Umar projects good.
No, I mean, Morab projects, again, like median projections are not the most useful for MMA. I much prefer to use odds and shit like that. But yeah, Morab just projects far above everybody else in that range. So he's going to get used a ton still. Yeah. I was just being hopeful. I was like, maybe he comes in lower than he should.
Fair.
It's not going to happen.
All right, Dan, favorite bet on this card before we get out of here. Let's give a winner for the people. Favorite bet, whatever you got.
Dude, I ended last year on like a heater for my favorite bet on the show. I think I had the last 5 or 6 in a row. One of those being,
you shouldn't have said anything. You were riding a hot streak, not saying anything. Now we're gonna, you fucked yourself, dude.
No, I'm gonna victory lap. Fuck that. I was looking back. I was like, I did good, and that included an RDR inside the distance win over GM3, by the way. But yeah, my favorite bet on this card is Jamal Hill money line.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. I like that one. I'm gonna go with. Oh man, I want to go with my dog bet here. Fuck it. I'm going with my dog bet here. Diego Faea, plus 200, plus 3.5 is plus money still on DraftKings. I like it. Dude's a warrior. He's tough. He's violent. He can get it done in many ways. He's got good scrambling too. So if it does get to the ground, he can get back to his feet, I think.
I love
that. And has good jiu-jitsu as well. So he's good, solid all-around guy. I like the price at 2-1. So that's the entire show. That's the entire card for UFC 311. If you want more content, Run Pure Sports has you covered. RPS 15 is the promo code for 15% off your first month or week. Get in, check out the content from me, Dan, JBC, Big T, Christine, everyone else. I'm probably forgetting people. That's my bad, but we got a nice crew over there doing the MMA stuff. Got the playbook live. Everyone's picking all the fights, core plays, the Discord. Get in there, ask your questions, whatever. And it's not just MMA. We got all the sports too. So if you want golf, NFL, we got a big week in NFL. Me, Big T, ODB recorded the Print Factory a few hours ago today on this YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and watch that, you can check that out here. Games don't start obviously till tomorrow. And there'll be a show tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time with the crew. I think it's like AP, Mangone, DC, and Snyder will be on talking the 4-game slate at 11 a.m. Eastern time on this YouTube channel tomorrow. So we got you covered with all the sports. Hope you enjoyed this show. We'll be back probably next week for Dan and myself, JSU. Good luck in your MMA betting and DFS for UFC 311. We'll see you guys next week. We're out.